Waterfalls are some of my absolute favorite things to photograph, and one of the best places to do that in Virginia is Shenandoah National Park. Hey guys, how's it going? Dylan here. As you can see, I am not in the office today. I am in a tent because Emily and I are camping at Shenandoah National Park, and we're really excited just to get away from things, enjoy some quality time together, and also to create some awesome nature photos, because I can't go anywhere like this without bringing my camera to capture some great nature photos. But what I want to talk about today is creating stunning waterfall images. We actually already went out today and I was able to get some really spectacular waterfall images. We had this really awesome fog that rolled in, this awesome mist was present there, and everything just came together to create a really nice scene for waterfalls. I want to talk about how you create stunning waterfall images, what goes into creating images that really pop. First, let's talk about lens choice. Now, usually for waterfalls, you want to bring a wide angle lens. If you have a 16-35 or the RF 15-35, that's what I'm using for these waterfall shots I'm going to be doing on this trip. But that is a great lens for waterfall photography because it allows you to capture the wide expanse of the waterfall and also a foreground element. That's something else you want to think about. What is going to be your foreground element? Because anyone can take their camera and point it at a waterfall and take a picture. Anyone can do that, but how do you set your images apart? Think about your composition. You have the waterfall, think about your foreground. What I like to really use is some kind of rock formation, but I also like to use a leaf. And it sounds silly, but when I hike, I like to look for a colorful, vibrant leaf that isn't torn or messed up at all. Really nice looking leaf, and I take that with me, and then I place it on the rock or on the ground, and it makes a fantastic foreground element. It really catches your eye and draws you into the photo. So definitely think about your composition, think about your foreground, because that's going to be really important in creating those stunning waterfall images. I also highly recommend getting an ND filter, a neutral density filter, and that's basically like sunglasses for your camera lens. It lessens the amount of light that comes in through your lens to reach your camera sensor. So this is really important for waterfall photography because you want to do long exposures. You want to have at least a few seconds of exposure time for waterfall images to really blur that water so it's silky smooth. It looks so good when you have a long exposure time. So by using an ND filter, you're able to achieve that. You can shoot at ISO 100 and your small apertures and have a long exposure even when shooting in broad daylight. Something else to consider getting would be a circular polarizer filter. This helps to reduce the reflections of the water that is splashed on the rocks there and helps enhance and enrichen the vibrancy of your image. It helps your colors pop a lot more. Something I do want to recommend is this guy right here. This is made by Polar Pro. It is an ND-PL filter. It combines a neutral density with a circular polarizer, and I absolutely love this filter. It performs exceptionally. I took it out today and I love the results I got. So I can't recommend this filter enough. It eliminates you having to stack your filters, as in putting one on top of the other, because it's all combined into one and it works great. So can't recommend that enough. Something else to consider is using a timer for your photos or using a remote, because if you're doing these long exposure shots and you press your shutter button and your camera wobbles, you're going to introduce some shake to your image. Something I like to do is always put at least a 2-second timer on. That way I can press my shutter button, sit back, and by the time the camera actually starts taking the picture, the wobble has gone away. So that's something I definitely recommend so that you can get a sharp image. Next, I want to talk about focus a little bit, and for waterfall images, I like to use manual focus and then zoom in on the back of my LCD screen times 10, make sure everything is in focus, looking good, and then of course I zoom out, I compose my image, and I take the picture, and this really helps me get a sharp photo. What do you think of this lighting real quick? I'm just using this little camping lantern right here. Ooh, look, ooh, spooky. I can tell spooky campfire stories with this thing, but it's working pretty well for on-the-fly video making. You gotta work with what you got, you know? And of course, shoot all of your images on a tripod. Do not handhold your camera for waterfall images. You're definitely gonna introduce that shake since you're doing long exposure photography. So lock down that tripod, make sure everything is secure before you take your photo. So that's a little bit of my prep and my process for creating waterfall images. We're just gonna head straight over to editing. Let's go ahead and check it out. All right, welcome to part 2 of how to create stunning waterfall images. I have Lightroom open right here on my computer, and I'm gonna walk you through how I edit my waterfall images. Let's take a look. All right, so I've imported my waterfall image right here into Lightroom. I'm not gonna go through every single thing I do to edit my nature photos because that would take up a lot of time, and I've already made a video on that. I'm gonna throw it up in a card if you'd like to check out my step-by-step process on how I edit my nature photos. But back to the image. First off, when I look at this image, I always come down and I remove chromatic aberration, enable profile corrections. Then I go ahead and I make sure my sharpening is up right about 80. That's where I usually like it. I don't need any noise reduction for this image because I'm at ISO 160, which is awesome. Then I'm gonna come here, I'm gonna drop my blacks just a little bit, increase my whites a little bit, boost my shadows a significant a bit, and then drop my highlights quite a bit, make sure I can see lots of detail in my waterfall. Then I'm gonna bump up my contrast. Let's start with about 25 right there, and then maybe boost my overall exposure maybe by like 0.3. That's looking pretty good for right now. Then I'm gonna go ahead and crop this image because I'm going to be displaying it on Instagram, and you can only do up to a 4:5 ratio on Instagram. So I am going to go ahead and click that and adjust my crop right about there so I get the stem of the leaf in that. That is looking really good. And now I'm just going to finesse some of the presence features right here. I'm gonna boost my dehaze, probably like 15, that's looking good. And I'm also gonna boost my clarity up by about 15. I wanna get a lot of sharp details in this nature photo because we have a lot of rocks going on here, and I wanna make sure those really pop in the image. I'm also gonna boost the texture, probably also about 15. If we zoom into the rock here, we can see what this does. I'm just getting a little bit more sharpness in that rock right there. And I'm also gonna boost my vibrance probably by about 25 or so. I want to make sure I get really nice vibrant colors in this waterfall shot. And now I'm just going to finesse some of these basic edits a little bit, and then we'll dive into the curves panel. So I'm liking where this looks right now with just the basic edits. Now let's jump into the curves panel to really adjust this image. So I'm going to come down here and I am going to drop the highlights just a little bit, boost my lights a little bit. I like a nice high contrast landscape image. That's part of my style. That's usually what I'm going for, and that's what I'm going for today. So I'm gonna go ahead and drop the darks a little bit, but boost my shadows a little. I wanna make sure I don't have too many areas where the blacks are crushed too much, where there's no detail left at all. But having a few of them in your image is common, and it's nothing I'm going to worry about. To check, I can click this triangle right here. You can see these blue areas right here, so I'm gonna go ahead and boost that a little bit more. I don't want as many of them. Maybe come back up here a little bit. That's looking good. I'm gonna go ahead and drop the darks down a little bit. Again, going for that nice high contrast look. Then I'm gonna come into my HSL panel. I'm thinking I'm going to boost the greens a little bit, maybe the oranges and the leaves a little bit. And then I'm gonna come down to here, hue, and I'm gonna target green, and I'm gonna push that this way a little bit. So you can see how the leaves were more of this yellowish color. Now I'm gonna move them to a greenish color, come to my luminance, maybe drop them down. Yeah, I'm gonna brighten them a little bit, and then drop my yellows. Orange right there, take my blues. You can see there's a lot of blues in the upper falls right here, so I'm gonna go ahead and drop those down a little bit. That's looking good. If I come to split toning, let's see my highlights. I probably want those in the bluish zone. I'm going to boost those a little bit, just like that. You can see the blue color coming into the falls. Shadows, maybe I want that a little bit warmer. Let's see what that looks like. Maybe just a tad. Just a little bit of warmth there in the waterfall. I'm liking how that looks. My sharpening is good. I'm gonna go ahead and do a final round of edits, just tweaking a lot of little things, and then we will go over the final edit. All right, I'm liking where that looks for all of our basic edits, and now I'm going to jump into some of the filters. If you've seen some of my other editing videos, you know I love using my radial and graduated filters, so I'm gonna go ahead and use some of those here. I'm gonna take my graduated filter, I'm going to pull this down Right about there, I want to darken the upper area right here. It's a little washed out. I'm gonna make sure that all my stuff equals 0. And then I'm gonna drop the exposure down just a little bit, drop the highlights down, maybe boost the contrast, boost the dehaze a little bit, and then maybe I just tad saturation right there. And click done. That's just giving me a little bit more detail in those upper falls right there, making sure that nothing's washed out. Then I'm gonna take my radial filter right here, and I'm going to click and draw, probably like that. Place it over my leaf, configure this how I want it, make sure this is inverted because I just want to target the leaf itself. And then I'm going to boost the exposure just ever so slightly, just a little bit to draw attention to it. Make sure my saturation is at its normal point, maybe boost it a little bit of contrast, make sure my feather's up there, and click done. That's just adding a little more punch to the leaf right there so that your eye immediately is drawn to that foreground element. And guys, I am liking how this image looks right here. Of course, I could spend more time editing this, but if you've taken a lot of photos and you got to roll through stuff, then you may not have an hour to spend editing your landscape images. But that is how I do my basic edits for any nature photos, and specifically for waterfall photos. I hope that you enjoyed this video. Comment below and let me know what you learned from this. What was a key takeaway that you're excited to go out into the wild to photograph waterfalls? What are you excited to implement? Comment below, let me know. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to subscribe so that you see more of my content as it comes out, and ring that notification bell so you get notified when that content comes out. And if you enjoyed it, I got 2 more videos down below. Be sure to check one of those out. And guys, I will see you in the next one.